Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 3, Episode 3, Mining the Mind's Mines. This video is part of a series of videos where I review episodes of Lower Decks. I have to start with the spoiler warning for Lower Decks up to Season 3, Episode 3. If you have not seen up to this point, you will not want to watch this video. Otherwise, some things will be spoiled for you. So, this episode of Lower Decks was fine. Another decent episode of Lower Decks. It was more sort of unified. I guess Tendi had her own storyline, or I would call it the B plot, honestly. And then Rutherford, Mariner, and Boimler were all together on the planet. Now this was it had that dude, that suck up dude who loves to suck up to Ransom. I don't remember the dude's name, but we've seen him before, and it was kind of funny the way that he constantly sucks up to Ransom, and that is how Mariner convinced him to, help them go really fast. And it was a silly concept to begin with, because it starts with this cold open. This is kind of like a normal thing that you would see in the Star Trek show, where the scientist is studying this thing, and they see the person of their fantasies come true and promise them riches, and as soon as they touches them, they turn to stone. So that's the premise, but then and I actually kind of like how when we come back to the cold open, it's like situations resolved, everything's solved. And again, that's kind of the Lower Decks spin on things, because we're not following like the main crew journey adventure. We're following like the cleanup, the second contact group, because this ship, I can't remember what it was called, but it already came in, already solved the situation, problem's done. They brokered a peace treaty between the miners and the silicon life form that were killing the scientists by using their fantasies against them, and so problem solved. Now the Cerritos teams up with another California class ship to try to, clean up the situation and just clean up after this and ratify the peace treaty. Which again I like, because it sounds like, oh well, everything, the main stuff is done, so why are we worried about this? But that's where the comedy comes in, because you have Boimler, Mariner, and Rutherford working with this other group of 3 people from a California class ship. And this is kind of fake the way they play it out, because at first they were like being like, oh, I heard about you, and like they look down and it's like, we actually do real work here, and being all stuck up and arrogant. But then we find out later on that they actually like hero worship them and heard all these great things about them. And I thought that, it's a comedy show, so I do take it with a grain of salt. But the twist was that little twisty was a bit silly. Not even for a comedy show, it's not something I totally buy. But since it's a comedy show, it doesn't really bother me that much. But anyway, because I wouldn't really say it was funny. I didn't find that part funny, but it's fine, whatever. But then so they're like racing each other, and they're like putting these slabs back on, whereas the I think they're like rebuilding this science research thing where Mariner and Rutherford and Boimler are like getting rid of the orbs that can cause fantasy. And it's kind of funny that we see Leah Brown. Now I think it was actually a bit of a shame that they called her out for Leah Brown, because I don't need to be told it's Leah Brown. I know it's Leah Brown. I got the joke. I think, if you're not a hardcore Star Trek fan, you wouldn't know who Leah Brown is anyway, so why do you need to call her out? Maybe it's for the passive Star Trek fans that wasn't sure who she was until they said her name. But come on. She's talking about the ship, and let me do your plasma inducers or whatever. That was hilarious, and I love that they were making fun of Rutherford for that being his fantasy, but it was very LaForge-esque. I feel like that was a direct jab at the whole LaForge thing, which I thought was hilarious. But then, of course, Boimler, I mean, obviously, he dreams of an admiral coming by and saying asking him to come in this dangerous permission where he's going to promote him. But it's funny that he was riding like a motorcycle type thing, but Boimler was like, riding in a little cart, and Mariner's like, what, really? That's what you fantasize about? He's like, well, I don't want to be the driver. That was funny, too. And we get our first reference of season 2 of Jennifer the Andorian. I was kind of missing Jennifer Andorian because they were implying there was some sort of thing maybe building up between her and Mariner, and they didn't touch on this at all yet. But here we see that Mariner is fantasizing about Jennifer the Andorian, and that's her fantasy, and she's like in a bikini, and of course she's very embarrassed by this because as far as they know that her and Jennifer are just friends. He's sure, oh no, we're just friends, but it's very clear from the fantasy that she wants more. And I can see how this could be invasive, and this is sort of reminiscent of other Star Trek shows like Shore Leave and Where No One Has Gone Before and stuff like that, or that stupid DS9 one, If Wishes Were Horses, but I don't think this is anywhere near as bad as that, and plus this is parodying those things, so it's fun. Yeah, it's kind of reminiscent of that, and it's really funny how they get to see everyone's fantasies. But then of course, as I mentioned, the guy who likes to suck up to Ransom tries to put an end to it. It's like, oh, you guys are being reckless, you're going too fast. And they're like, oh, well, those people calling Ransom like that. But he goes too fast, and he crashes and destroys all the orbs, which calls them to warp, and instead of portraying their fantasies, portrays their nightmares. And then we get Kublai Khan. That is Kublai Khan. From the animated series episode Howl Sharper Than the Serpent's Tooth, I believe is the name of that episode, which was, it was a Native American god that came, was apparently visited Earth, and, original series trope. But here, they never actually call that out, that someone's nightmare is Kublai Khan, because that was definitely Kublai Khan. But anyway, as seen on the animated series. But anyway, we also get like a Borg snake and some other weird shit. And then it starts getting really weird where they're like spitting up basketballs and like wearing a hat. Oh, like Jennifer Andorian turns into a giant wolf that wants to like trap Mariner and suffocate her. Relationship wise, not literally. But it also kind of shows what her fears are. But then it starts getting really weird and fucked up, and that's when they uncover that the miners and the Silicon life forms are actually working together to scam Starfleet and get all this classified information and basically sell off the data and their information. And I like that. Like, this is kind of an analogy for the internet, actually, the more I think about it. But anyway, that was really interesting, and how they uncovered this. And this ties into the Tendi B storyline, where she is like sent to have a mentor who is like that bird counselor, Mr. Peanut Butter's guy, and how he's kind of shit at his job and thinks he's great, but it's actually Dr. Tayana that gives her the best advice, because he's like, oh, why don't you go up and say something and do this to Captain Freeman? And she's like, but Captain Freeman's not gonna like that. And of course at first Freeman doesn't, and is kind of pissy. But then we get the whole thing about Captain Freeman, the other captain of the other California class ship, refusing to take the gift. This storyline got a bit ridiculous, but maybe I find it really funny because of that they spent like hours arguing, no, you take it, no, you take it. And then like Tindy scanned it and saw it had some properties, but then she realized it was the spying device, and then Boimler and Mariner came up from the planet and they reported, yes, they're just spying for the information. And the guys, the rock people, scientists is like, yeah, I think I gotta go back down to the planet now. I need to go do some rock thing. And then God, what's the dude's name? The Bajoran security chief, Shax, yes, had a brain fart there. He blocks their way, and then we see Keyshawn. Apparently he's still around, Keyshawn or whatever his name is, but he doesn't have any dialogue in this episode, but we just see him. And they take the other two away, and then Mariner makes up with that other captain guy. So yeah, this was a fun episode. It's a decent episode. I didn't really have any issues with it. It didn't wow me though. I wouldn't call this like an amazing episode that blew me away or hilarious. It had me in stitches. It didn't really have me in stitches, but it's kind of funny. Like the whole Leah Brown thing. Oh, and it has that line that we saw in the trailer where when they realize that things are like leave their, or bringing their nightmares to life, and Rutherford's like, but I don't like my nightmares. I don't know why. I always found that line funny. Yeah, so this one, I think the more I think about it, the more this one works for me. I wouldn't say this is an amazing episode or anything like that, but it does work for me. So my rating, out of 10 for, what is the tongue twister name of this episode again? Mining the Mind's Mind, out of 10 is an 8, extremely good. It's a low 8 to be sure. I'm not blown away by this episode, but it was funny, and I didn't really have any issues with it, and I thought it did some great character explorations with Tendi learning how to step up for herself. We learned that the Cerritos lower deckers have a reputation among other lower deckers, which was pretty interesting, and the whole thing, we finally get a reference again to Jennifer the Andorian, which I was very psyched about. And that Leah Brown's appearance was just hilarious. But anyway, so that's it for my review of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 3. I shall be back next week and every week thereafter to cover Star Trek Lower Decks, so be sure to subscribe to keep up with that, as well as I cover many more videos, such as many more Star Trek shows, as well as other shows such as House of the Dragon, Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.